Hey guys, David again from Flywheel Fulfillment. Today we're going to walk you through the life cycle of a report. You guys have seen our landscape reports. We want to show you all of the value that we're adding into the landscape report and the history that goes on in the life of a landscape report before you receive the report so that you can understand everything that's happened on the way in. So our first step as we look at this process is our first data computer. We're currently in the data center of Flywheel Fulfillment. We treat this place quite heavily with a lot of biometric accesses on every one of the computers into the room. We call it Quantico as a joke, but the value that we're adding into this report is enormous, and so we like to protect that value for your sake. Here is a look at our front-end software. You'll see it's Flywheel Fulfillment. We have a lot of different modules in this software. Today we're going to walk you through how we're creating the landscape report, which is here inside the products database. We do offer the software as a supplemental program. That's something you should ask one of us about later. You can get access to every one of these tabs. However, today we're going to walk through the landscape report, and we find a lot of mileage here in the products database. This is where stored products we're pulling up from sales history data, and we'll show you that here in a second. So choose our marketplace: USA, Canada, Mexico, and UK. We choose whatever category we want to go after. These are all Amazon categories. Price, we can do a price range. Obviously, when you're looking at a price range, those on the higher end of the range are less competitive than those on the lower end of the range. We have to take into account the low end of the range on pricing for profitability to make sure that something you're selling is profitable. So we generally don't go much lower than $9.99. We try to go between the $15 and $100 range. That's why you see that on here right now. We can also plug in our range on BSR, and so we can try to filter through the products by how fast they move on Amazon, which is obviously the bestseller ranking. Stars, this is the average star review rating, so 4 stars, 3 stars, 2 stars. Obviously, we don't want to be looking for stars in the 1-star range. However, we do find that if a product's selling incredibly well and doesn't have a great rating, it gives us an immediate advantage in order to improve on the product through our sourcing ability. Next, we have our weight. This is in pounds. The weight is a way to control cost at the Amazon fulfillment and in our omni-channel, multi-channel fulfillment. Obviously, different tiers of weight have different expenses. More heavy obviously equals a lot more expensive to ship and store. Unit sales per day, this is an estimation, so this is something that we play with quite a bit. We're trying in this software as hard as we can to set up very tough filters. So we're setting a very high standard so that we're starting many times too small and have to go back out instead of setting something up on 0 to 5,000 sales a day or 0 to 10. We're trying to create a very high standard that we then have to pull back on if we're not quite finding enough product. Revenue per day is also an assumption, and then package size goes into fulfillment costs, not only at Amazon but also in our own fulfillment algorithms and cost with our negotiated carriers. Then we're going to choose show only products found based on the last 7 days, in the last 14 days, in the last month, 6 months, or of all time since we've been culling through data. We can have a tab that show big brands. This is your Rubbermaid. This is your very, very large companies that you typically find in the big box stores. We can turn that on or we can turn that off. We can search further on a filter by search term. So if we see something come up in the middle of a craze like a fidget spinner, you can type that in here and find that product specifically based on all of these other pieces that you're plugging in. And you can order the listings as they come out by whatever you're specifically looking at. Generally, we're trying to focus on BSR, and we like to see them in an ascending row. We can also exclude words within a title. That comes in really handy when we are furthering down on a niche of a product. So if we're trying to find a kitchen spoon and we do not want to have plastic kitchen spoons, then we can eliminate plastic. So it's a kitchen spoon and eliminate plastic. So we can get really granular on this data. We'll click on search, And what will happen is our software will comb through our product database and pull up those items that match our search. So you'll see there are a lot of repeats, a lot of high volume items. We're not looking for things like ink from HP. We're not looking to, on a private or white label, select ink. We're trying to find those items that we feel we can source in China and do better than the next person. And we'll talk about that process and the step in that process here in a second. So we're going to ignore those things that we feel like are not a good sourcing aspect. We're going to select those things that we feel like we can improve on. So for instance, USPS, US flag forever stamps, not in our wheelhouse, that's sold directly by USPS. This could be an interesting one. A home theater video projector has 51 reviews, 4.5 stars. It's number 369 in office products. So we're going to go ahead and save that as a potential product. That gets pulled into our potential products list. We're then going to keep looking and find something unique. Here's one, coal case fireproof document bag. This would be something you would select as an alternative to a big, heavy, expensive safe, something you could stick in home or office. Looks like it's number 442 as of today on office products on Amazon, has 52 reviews with 4.5 stars. The weight is fantastic from a fulfillment perspective. Price is really great. Revenue estimator, it's estimating at about 62 sales a day. So we're going to go pull this up. This is live data as of January 8th. You can see on the video stamp today is January 8th. This is live as of today. So we're going to go ahead and click on this product. I'm going to bring it up in Amazon for us so we can see the actual listing. This is where we take a step and try to see if there are process improvements immediately on this product. It gives us a way to look and see how well this specific listing is created. If we see at this stage that the listing is not a great listing, it gets us pretty excited because it's one more aspect that we feel we can improve. These guys have done a really great job on this listing. They have high quality pictures that tell the story really well. They have their Amazon's choice for the keyword fireproof, waterproof bag. You can see that they've done a great job with their bullet points and their descriptions. There's probably a reason why they have 52 customer reviews and that they're at a 4.9 out of 5 star. So this is something that we will also add back into the potential products. Once we have those in the potential products, we have generated a very large list of potential products. We'll go into our potential product list, find those things that we found as unique. We will download all of these into a CSV file and move them on to the next step in the process, which we'll show you at this point. That's on a completely different computer with different login algorithms. Let's log into that computer now. Each one of our computers here in the data center relies on biometric access. No one in the company has access to every single step in the process. Each person has individual access to each piece of the process. Each piece adds its own significant value, and so biometrically logging in, now we have access into the system. This is the second stage software where we analyze everything we pulled from the first stage to ensure that it's a good product. Let's take a look deeper into this software. Okay, here you see an inventory file. This is a downloaded file from our front-end software. Now, all of these colors don't come in. This comes in after the analysis has been completed. What you do see in here, though, is this is a standard. This is where it is here. You can see that this is a patio, lawn, and garden file. So as I scroll down here, it'll show you the size of the files that we pull and the data that we chew through on a regular basis. This has 3,108 units in it. And if I just scroll and randomly stop at any given point and pull through here, you'll see that it's pulling up incredibly different items. I mean, I don't even know what this is. Inflatable solar powered lantern, outdoor camping lantern with 3 lighting modules. Kind of cool. Right next to that is a propane regulator, birdhouse, some kind of curtain lighting, some strip lighting LEDs, whatever that is, little griddle, garden hose, sprayer, hose nozzle. I mean, we're pulling up through the software items that we just would never find on our own. They take enormous amounts of hours. Before we built all of this software, we were spending tens of hours trying to find one potential product and then having to go through an analysis on that product. We've done is streamlined that process to be able to find very high quality product very quickly. And so now we're able to get even more aggressive in our analysis and find more product quicker, try to find even better product than what we'd find on our own, trying to follow everybody else's advice of, going to a bestseller list and going to the end of it and looking through the bestseller list for those that have bad pictures or bad reviews or don't have their bullets organized or done right or don't have their titles optimized. That's the kind of stuff you're hearing. This is a much more scientific way to do it. So we pull each one of these items in. Every single one of these is a different item, as you can see from the pictures. They're all very different, very unique. What we're doing is pulling them out by Amazon's ASIN number. We click on the ASIN, we swap over to Amazon, we pop it up on Amazon here, plug in an ASIN search, it'll pull up a specific listing. We will back out and do a search on that type of a listing. So here I have one pre-prepped for you. This is on spice jars. This came up about a month ago. This is a good product. However, there's a lot of diversity on this item. So we will pull this item up and run it through yet an additional piece of software. That software generates a report similar to this data. So this is a data report, lots and lots of sellers in this data. This data is pinging every available database that we're able to get access to, things like Jungle Scout, Unicorn Smasher, FBA Toolkit. We're walking through all of their data on every single ASIN, pulling all of that data up in here, and then we're going back through on the Amazon search, finding each one of those items, and making sure that each item is what it says it is. So if we're pulling up spice jars, sometimes something pulls up that's not an actual spice jar. They're selling a tower here. That doesn't fit with what we're looking for. Right now, we're specifically looking for spice jars. So we're going to come in and pull every item that's not a spice jar out of this data so it doesn't skew our data. We're also going to go in and make sure that this item at the top here that's being marketed, that's being paid for through advertising, these items that are being paid for through advertising, don't show up multiple times in the data so that we're not, again, skewing the data improperly. This is what we call cleansing the data. So we're going to go in and cleanse this data from a bunch of different viewpoints. Basically, the idea is let's get this data down to a common denominator so that when we plug it into our software and our algorithms that have made our $1 million store work, we're coming out with pure data on the other end that we can rely on. Now, keep in mind, we're stripping out everybody else's biases, and then we're plugging them in through our own. So there is bias once we plug it in and generate a report. So once we're done going through this data and cleansing it, it's a fairly hefty process. It takes quite a long time. Whenever you see a repeat, it's a deletion. Whenever you see anything that doesn't jive with what we're looking for, which is trying to identify what the top 10 sellers of the item we're specifically looking at, spice jars, is, once we get that data, we're going to copy the top 10 and move it over into our software. So you've seen here the product results. And we're going to pull up our software. This is a very simplified dashboard for the user that's at this computer. What's going on behind the scenes here is incredibly hefty. It's running some very, very extensive data processing and algorithms so that once we plug the data in, you saw that change, it now gives us a very clean view on the data. We're going to change this to spice jars. All of the rest of this pulls up automatically based on the data that's in the report. We're going to add that into our product results page. As we add that, it pops over in here to the very, very bottom as the next item that we've looked at. Once we do that, we're going to save that as a PDF so that we have that data for later. And then we're going to generate a landscape report. So as we take a look at this landscape report, we're going to see, as you've been trained already and have seen and shown, this shows the top 10 sellers of this particular item. Now, before you see this report, a whole lot of stuff happens, and that's what we'll talk about in the next stage. This isn't the stage where you see the report. This is the stage where we see the first version of a report for this item. We come in here and say, okay, this item needs about 167 reviews. If you're going to sit right in the smack dab middle of these top 10 sellers for this item, what that generates on median is about $14,000 in revenue, and every 3 months you need to buy about 870 units. How we're generating this number is based on a median basis, not an average. If you see that we took an $84,000 seller and did an average with a $6,000 seller, in this report you've got everything sitting here below 9, 8, 7, 6, 7. Then you're averaging it up here on the top with 84 and 33. You're going to think this is a much better item than it really is. What we do is do a median. So what's happening is this is automatically re-ranking these items from top to bottom. Then it's going to go to the very middle item, and it's going to take an average of what's on either side. As we move from there, it does the same thing for your reviews. It's going to re-rank them from top to bottom, go to the middle, and do an average of what's on either side. Now, this is pulling from multiple different databases, so there are times when these numbers don't perfectly correspond with this front end. This front end is the data that we're importing. Then as we go through, cleanse the data, plug it into this dashboard, it's now pinging all of the databases that we've pulled on the back end. So this is going through some very hefty data crunches. Basically, we're trying to determine, is this an item worth selling or not? From purely an economical standpoint, do we have too much competition on this item? We can see here that there's one seller who has 0 to 50 reviews. There's 3 sellers that have 200 reviews or more, 4 sellers in 150 to 200 reviews, and then 1 seller on each of these other areas. Every single report is going to be different. If I back out of the previous data and pop into the item that was in here before, you can see that this item, Swing Top Bottles, has 228 reviews needed to get 4,000. So when you look at the difference between the two, hopping back into our spice jars, these are by far a better product. You have to get not quite half the reviews to generate about 3 times more in revenue. Now that doesn't mean that the other product isn't for someone. It doesn't mean that somebody doesn't have a complementary item or doesn't want to build a product lineup based on all of those items. Maybe that volume fits better within their budget. Maybe the item price combined with the volume fits a lot better within their budget. Budget is driven strictly by you, and that's where one of our core principles is we are only comfortable in the arena that you're comfortable. If you want a $5,000 a month budget for a product, we're going to try to find you something that our data says is a $5,000 a month budget. This item would exceed that. So at this point, we've proven this is a good item. We want to take a look at this item. What this doesn't prove is how we find that item. We're not comfortable giving you this report. This report, while it has a lot of value built into it because we've crunched all of the data and it looks like it's a good item, on our white label service, we then take yet another step inside of this data, and we step into Amazon and we pull up all of these items. This particular analysis will be done on the spice jar listing. So we come in and we type in spice jars. Take a look at all of the trending spice jars here on the front page. We go multiple pages deep, and what we're looking for is, why does this particular item sell well? Why does this particular item not have any reviews on it, yet sits above an item with 1,400 reviews at $25? Why does this particular item have 4.5 stars on 51 reviews? We're looking for really low reviews that are ranking high, meaning this item is selling very, very well, yet has bad reviews. What is it about this item that sells well? If we go look at that particular item and look at the reviews, we pop down in to see what these 6 customers have to say. I ordered 2 sets, and unlike the other reviewers, they arrived unbroken. So it sounds like there's a problem with some of these arriving broken. However, the quality of these jars is, in their words, horrible. The glass on the lids is rough and sharp in the majority of them, and every one of them, the metal clasp and hinges are deteriorated and rusty. We can't have that. When we're sourcing a product, we can't have any of these issues. We can't fall to the bottom of the pile simply because our quality isn't up to snuff. So here's another review. I really like the little jars. They're sufficient size to hold most spices, yet not so big that you're using spice for 2 or 3 years. However, you can count on 1 or 2 being broken in the packaging. 6 out of 24 arrived broken. These jars are perfect for Christmas presents. Unfortunately, it wasn't well padded. One of them was broken. Package came in through broken. Obviously, there's a problem with quality here. However, there's something about this people like. There's something about this listing. There's something about the size of these jars. So we're trying to analyze what is it about this particular listing that we like. Then we're trying to go into a very high volume, high selling item and figure out what is it that these like. These, if you go in, you can read the questions that the customers have asked and the answers that people have said, and then you can go in and look at why do people really like these items. Quality was what I expected. I love that the labels came with the spice bottles. It made it very convenient. Okay, that's great. Glass is thick. I like that shaker cap allows for a good seal with the lid. So these items come with a little cap in them that allows you to change between sizes of spices. Say you have a cinnamon versus an oregano, allows you to have a different size hole as you put an insert in them. This one says, works well, nice heavy jars, and I like the chalkboard label. As we come through these, we'll see lots and lots more comments about chalkboard labels. So we want to go and look and say, okay, we obviously want to have chalkboard labels. However, what's the quality difference between this item with a chalkboard label versus another item, another spice jar that has a chalkboard label? What's the difference between them? Is there a reason we should do silver metal lids versus something else? Is there something different about the sourcing on the inserts? We found through our analysis on this item that the inserts were all the rage. They were also the cause for most of the negative reviews. We found that quality of glass was an issue and quality of insert was an issue. So in this scenario, we're looking and saying, how can we then source a product that will rise to the top of Amazon based on its quality as we do everything else properly, as we optimize the listing on the title, bullet points, descriptions, backend, as we're doing backend keywords, as we're optimizing the advertising campaign. We're going to do all of that regardless of whether it's a high quality product or whether it's a bad quality product. The product quality is a huge step in sourcing. For us, we're fortunate. We have many, many boots on the ground in China. We have a team there. We have a team here. We're able to enter into performance-based legal Chinese contracts between the Chinese manufacturer and us and our entity in China. That way we're able to go out and look, visibly see and physically feel the bottles and say, you know what, this bottle is not heavy duty like this top seller is. We're trying to combine the very best of the best on every one of these products before we even reach out and source them, before we reach out and get a sourcing cost. So the next step in our process is what we call the China hopper. Once we've identified back into our database, once we've identified that this item is good, we hop into Amazon, we look at every one of the listings and figure out what it is that we want to combine on, and then we come in here and we drop them into this list. Now I'm going to only show a handful of these items, and I'm not going to show a lot of the sensitive data. You can see that we've blacked out some of the sensitive data here, the price per unit, MOQs, that sort of a thing. However, we're dropping in each one of these items and then we're leaving pieces of information for our China team to come in and take a look at. Basically, we're trying to come in and say, if you're going to source these spice jars, this is what you need to look for. Then our China team is going to run out to all of the top volume manufacturers of glass, spice jars, labels, everything that's going to be required here. We do have manufacturing knowledge and manufacturing expertise. And so if we find that there's simply not a spice jar on the market that has an insert inside of it, like this little guy, that's good enough, we'll manufacture our own. We'll go in and CAD, we'll create, and then we will market and sell our own insert. We have the ability to do that side of the equation as well. So we come in, drop those items into China. China goes out, does their thing. Our team there works hard, brings back costs. From there, we have to take a look, once we have an item cost in our China hopper on this side of the equation. When they come back and drop an item cost here, we then have to take a look and say, is this item profitable or not? Can we ocean freight this item profitably for it to be a private label customer? Can we ocean freight the item profitably for it to be a white label customer? Is there a chance we can air freight this item profitably for a private label customer? Is there a chance we can air freight this item profitably for a white label customer? Each one of those questions is determined by the back end sourcing piece once we get the item cost and once we have an idea on the volume that this requires. We can then go in and make a determination on whether this item is good to sell or not. This is a stage where a lot of great items are killed because the profitability just isn't there. We are very, very good at sourcing. We have multiple $1 million sellers, some $1 million per month sellers in our warehouse. Every single one of them has told us we've never found someone better. We get lots and lots of recommendations from our high volume sellers to a lot of other people because we're very, very good at the sourcing process. This has helped us to be able to guarantee product. So when you buy a white label product from us or a private label product from us, we guarantee quality. If you get these in and they're arriving 4 out of 7 broken, we haven't had that yet, but if it happens, we replace that item. This isn't some guarantee off of I won't name names, but a Chinese website listing service where they'll credit you for some further order down the road from the same supplier that you don't want to order from again. This is something where we step up and we will replace the item if it's a quality issue. That's how comfortable and confident we are in our sourcing ability. So to recap, we start on the front end software. Find very unique, high volume, low competition items. Push them into this, our second stage software. As we pull through each one of these items in this list, this is a lawn and garden list of 3,000 items. We're pulling every one of them one by one by one by one into we're pulling reports like this on every single one of them and pulling them into the analysis stage. So we pull a report on every single one of these ASINs. We run those ASINs back through our back-end data. Once we run it through our back-end data, ping all the available databases, we then push those numbers that come to us through our own biases of what have made our $1 million stores successful. Once it comes out the other end, it comes into this report. We take this report, we judge whether or not this is a great item, a good item, or just not an item at all that we want to do. We'll come back into our own results and we'll codify them and say, yeah, this is something we want to do, or no, this is something we don't want to do. There are times when you'll see that items just do not go well, and so we just get rid of them. We don't even focus on them. We don't spend another second on the items. We then take a look and say, for certain people who are not afraid of reviews, there are items that do really, really well. Here's an item that requires 600 reviews just to be in the middle of the top 10. However, it's going to generate about $51,000 a month if you're in the middle of the top 10. That happens to be a grill cover. If you guys aren't afraid of reviews, go chase it. That's not an item that we ended up sourcing. We do have partners who vary in their skill sets. Some of them launch products very well. Some of them want very low-hanging fruit, like this one, where you have to get 97.5 reviews, and it will generate $17,000 a month in revenue. Once you get in and obviously have optimized listings and optimized advertising. So once we get through this stage, we get to the landscape report. If the landscape report looks good, we hop over, send into Amazon, find all of the great things about an item, all of the bad things about an item, combine all of those pieces into one. Our sourcing team then runs out and solves the equation for how to make the very best of that item available, send us back a price, and then we go through a very hefty analysis on our end on how we can make this a profitable item so that you don't end up selling something that is not profitable for you and is not profitable for us. Once we determine after all of those filters that an item is truly profitable, then we come back in and move these item reports back into a folder called Ready to Be Sold. You'll see here, this is our data crunching hopper of all of our reports. We then have a hopper once we're ready to move these files into our sourcing. We drop these into the sourcing folder, then we hop back into our Ready to Sell. This is the stage when you finally see the landscape report come to life. When you see a landscape report sent from a Flywheel salesperson, you're seeing the tail end of that entire process that we just went through. That process takes quite a while. These reports aren't generated overnight, and they take a lot of effort. There's a lot of value behind those reports. So when you're seeing this report come across your desk, you can now see all of the value that comes into the numbers. You can see how many sellers are on that specific item, how they are choosing to fulfill that item, whether selling directly to Amazon or an individual seller utilizing the FBA service. Every now and then you'll see that there are some in the top 10 who are merchant fulfilled. Shows you the price of that specific item, the BSR ranking, number of reviews on that at the time of the report, average rating or star rating of those reviews, and then the estimated sales. These are after going through our biases of what have made our products sell well and pulled against the other review data that's out there, or the other sales data that's out there. Then you'll see down here, we already went through, barriers to entry are medium because there are 167 sellers, 7 of which happen to be 150 plus reviews. The rest of them bringing that median happen to be 1 seller in each one of those. That should generate about $14,000, $15,000 a month in revenue on the item if you're advertising correctly, have the product optimized to fit here in the top 10, and you should buy about 870 units if you want to have a quarter's worth of inventory. We push a quarter's worth of inventory because it takes a while for manufacturing, it takes a while for the product to ride on the ocean, and you never ever want to be in a spot where you're selling here in the top 10, getting numbers like this, and then stock out. Because as your BSR then falls, because you don't have inventory, someone else's who's selling directly against you is rising. And so you have a double-edged sword and a double whammy. So we typically tell people you want to look for at least a quarter's worth of inventory, 3 to 4 months, so that you don't end up stocking out. That is the life of a landscape report. When you see a report come across from one of our guys, it has a lot of value built into that report. We're excited to work with you, and we're excited to send over more reports your way.